All right, I think we're ready to begin. Yeah, I think that's cleaned up our audio. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Again, my name is Kathleen Peters, and I am with Dreams to Go. And we're going to be talking today about how to get the best out of your Alaska vacation. This will take about 30 minutes, and I will be sharing some insights on Alaska, some must-know tips for travel, answer some of your questions, and we will give away a prize for some Alaska trivia. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, let me introduce the cast of characters. Again, I'm Kathleen Peters, your speaker for today, and I'm an associate agent with Dreams to Go, a full-service American Express travel agency that does travel by land or sea. It's owned by John and Christine Ripley. And this is what I'd like to accomplish today. First of all, my objective is to make sure you know the must-knows about Alaska. When's the best time to visit? How is the best way to travel? What are some of the best itineraries? And then I'll share with you some of my insider tips, having just come back from Alaska this summer, as well as spending a lot of time working on board ships in my younger years when I was a cruise director with the cruise lines. And I will also compare some of the cruise lines. I took a sneak peek at who's doing what for 2014. So I'll help you choose the best cruise ship for you. And then I'll share some of my cost-saving tips for you. Then we'll answer some of your questions, and hopefully one of you will win a prize for your Alaskan knowledge. First of all, Alaska is huge. You are just not going to be able to see all of it in your first trip. It is as wide as the lower 48 states combined, and it is larger in landmass than Texas, California, and Florida combined. So you're going to really need to prioritize what you want to see most. So it's a really good idea to do research like this before planning your trip. Also, many locations in Alaska are only accessible by boat or by plane. And that's important to know when you're traveling. For instance, the capital of Juneau has no roads going into it. You actually must fly in or take a boat or ferry to get into Juneau. As a matter of fact, there's been a couple of movements where Alaskans have wanted to switch the capital to Fairbanks because it's a lot more accessible. However, it has never won the vote. So they're staying with the traditional capital of Alaska, which is in Juneau. Also, if you look at the map here, you can see that Denali National Park is in the interior. So that is not really a day trip from the cruise lines, and you really need to spend 2 or 3 days if you wanted to add a land portion to a cruise. But of course, you can do a land-only vacation and spend quite a lot of time in Denali because it's 6 million acres. There's plenty to spend a whole week seeing and doing on the land portion alone. There's also a lot of different geography, and we'll be talking about that a little bit later. So you'll be seeing different things in the interior than you would on the shore. So your vacation is going to include some combination or all of the following. There will be airfare, at least to get to Alaska, if not within Alaska. There's also boat, ship, or train. And you may combine some of these, especially if you're looking at a cruise tour, and we'll talk a little bit more about cruise tours. And those are the cruise lines that have combined a land portion with a cruise so that you can do a little bit both of the cruise and see more of the interior. However, you don't have to take a cruise to see Alaska. They actually have a very good ferry system there, which is affordable, and you can get tickets and walk on or drive your car on. And that will take you from city to city within Alaska along the shore. Also, the Alaskan Railroad is a great way to travel, an inexpensive way if you get a rail pass. So there are lots of ways of doing that. If you're saving money and or like to do things on your own and rough it a little bit, then you try that try that way of doing it on completely on your own with the ferry and a rail pass. However, if you like a little bit more luxury in your travel, but still want to see the gorgeous scenery and wildlife and things to do and see in Alaska, you may consider an organized tour. There's plenty of tour operators that go into Alaska, or a cruise. Several of the cruise lines cruise in Alaska in the summer. It's the number 2 after the Caribbean. It's the most popular cruise destination among cruisers. And the third thing is do a combination of cruise and tour that a lot of the bigger cruise lines offer. One of the first things to know about Alaska is when should you go? Summer can really be divided into 3 mini seasons. The first one being in May. That's when the cruise ships usually go into that area. It can be sunny, a little drier than the rest of the summer. You'll still see snow on the mountain peaks, a little cooler, but it is absolutely a gorgeous time to go. Then the next is peak season, and this is considered June 15th to July 15th, and that's basically called peak season because the salmon are running, which is a feat unto itself. However, it also attracts a lot of animals down to the water's edge. You'll see a lot of the larger mammals that come down to the water. They woke up during May after hibernation, but they're still inland, and by 1st of July, definitely when the salmon are running, they're down by this water's edge. So there's a lot of great wildlife viewing right from your ship during peak season. I went actually on a June 24th cruise this year, and the salmon were not running yet. However, I did see plenty of wildlife, and this is some of what we saw this summer in June. And we did see moose, we did see some whales, definitely eagles. We saw otters and sea and harbor seals. So there was plenty of wildlife, even though the salmon weren't running. And then the third season of summer after peak season is August and September. It's definitely July and August are rainy. September gets cooler again as it starts shifting into fall. And if you would like to see Mount McKinley, which is pictured here, I just want to give you an insider tip that there's only about a 30% chance that you'll see the top of Mount McKinley during the summer because it is usually shrouded in low-lying clouds or fog. Because believe it or not, a lot of Alaska is in a temperate rainforest. So they get a lot of moisture and summer is the rainy season. So if you want to see the top of Mount McKinley, you may do better actually in May when it's a little bit sunnier. However, whenever you go, one of my insider tips is to make sure if you're staying in the Denali at one of the resorts, especially the Mount McKinley resort, is put in a call at the front desk and ask for a call when the top of the mountain is visible. Because with 12 hours of daylight during the summer, it's very possible that you could see the top of the mountain. It could clear at 4:30 in the morning. And if it is, the front desk will call anyone that requested it, and you can run down with a lot of your neighbors in your pajamas with your cameras to catch this incredible sight. All right, a lot of people are considering a cruise, and they often ask me, what's the best cruise line? And since I represent all the cruise lines and love all the cruise lines and travel on all the cruise lines, I usually don't like to say that. What I ask them is there's 3 factors that will help you choose the best cruise for you, and that is itinerary, price, and the quality of amenities and services that you prefer when you travel. Let's talk first about some of the itineraries, cruise itineraries. This is absolutely my favorite cruise itinerary, and that is the one starting from Vancouver, doing northbound Inside Passage. If you can see here the way it goes, it's threads all through these little outlying islands to go up to Ketchikan, Juneau, and Skagway. So that is an incredibly gorgeous trip. The other must-see for me on a cruise itinerary is Glacier Bay. A lot of them will say will tell you you will see glacier viewing, which you will. There's Hubbard's Glacier here, there's Mendenhall, there's others. But Glacier Bay, is a national park that is an incredible bay with 8 glaciers that feed into it that you really shouldn't miss. This continues up northbound to Whittier, where you can either fly home from Anchorage after a 7-day cruise or extend it with 3 or more days and go on up to the interior and see some of Denali National Park. This is a shot of the inside passage and why I think that it is really a must-see in your cruise itinerary, because it is like cruising on a river. You will see mountains, trees, wildlife in front of you, behind you, on the right of you, to the left of you. There's just an incredibly breathtaking scenery and sights to see as you're cruising. A lot of the cruise lines that come out of Seattle and San Francisco are outside in the ocean until they reach their first port of call. And I just think you're going to miss a lot if you don't get to experience the day in the Inside Passage to get up to Ketchikan. And here's my other must-see. This is from my snapshots this summer, so it's a little grayer. It was a little cloudy that day, not professionally done. But this is Marjorie Glacier, and it's one of 8 glaciers that feed into Glacier Bay. And it was just an incredible sight. They have the park rangers come on, they do your narration throughout the day on what you're seeing. And if you have never seen 200 feet of ice calve off of a glacier face and crash into the ocean, it sounds like cannon fire, and the birds and everything that it sweep in to take advantage of everything it's stirring up is just an amazing sight, definitely not to be missed. And back to then, we've talked itineraries and some of my must-sees. Let's talk price and services and amenities. And this is my cheat sheet. It is the way I help clients understand the different classes of cruise line categories. And I do that by comparing them to hotels. A lot of people are much more familiar with the star system of hotels. They understand a 3-star versus a 4-star or 5-star hotel. But cruise lines are different. They all look beautiful in the advertisements, but not all cruise ships are created equal. And that's not to say that one is better than the others. It's all about expectations. If you're matching the correct budget with the correct expectation of services and amenities, then you're going to be very happy on the ship you choose, wherever it falls in this continuum. But let me just tell you a little bit about how we lay them out. And this is from the Cruise Line International Association categories. I didn't just make these up. I do have one little caveat I'll tell you about, but I get to do that since I worked for both the companies. And so under the contemporary cruise lines, they relate most closely to 3-star hotels like a Holiday Inn, Best Western, and Ramada. Very good brands. They have a good standard clean room fare and just good basic product. And that would be your Carnival, Norwegian Cruise Line, or Royal Caribbean. Very good value hotels, very good value cruise ships. Stepping up a little bit to the premium category, these include Princess Cruises, Holland America, Cunard, and Disney. And these equate a little bit more to the 4-star hotels, a little bit more full service, Marriott, Hyatt, Hilton, in terms of food and the rooms and the services. And my one caveat, full disclosure, is I put Disney Cruise Line in the premium category because they are definitely at a price premium over Carnival, Norwegian, and Royal, but their services, the quality of the ships, the quality of the programming and service are also superior. So I'm lobbying that they get put into the premium category. Now there's this category called Premium Plus, and those are just the ones that are falling in between premium and luxury. The Premium Plus in a hotel would be like the Renaissance, Westin, Omni hotels, and those would equate to the Celebrity Cruise Lines, Oceania, and Azamara. Little bit better food, a little bit more gourmet food for my foodies, a little bit higher amenities in the cabins, and they pride themselves on a little bit more concierge service. So they also are at a little bit more of a price premium. But if that's where you like to travel, you're probably going to be more comfortable matching the cruise ship to the kind of hotel you travel with. And lastly is luxury. And these are our Ritz-Carlton, Four Seasons, and Fairmonts. And they equate to the cruise lines of Regent Seven Seas, Crystal, Silversea, and Seabourn. Definitely high-end luxury in both food, service, and amenities. They have butler class services as well as concierge is pretty much de rigueur throughout the ship, and they command a price premium. These are much, much more than back at the contemporary level of ship. And I took a sneak peek at what these different lines were doing in Alaska next year. So, and this will make sense also now that you know their categories. I was looking, for instance, at in the contemporary category. Carnival only has one ship that's going into Alaska, and that's the Miracle. They only do Glacier Bay on a couple of sailings, and those are in May. They have no peak sea Glacier Bay sailings. And frankly, that's because Glacier Bay is a eco-sensitive national park, and they only allow 2 cruise ships in a day. And Princess and Holland America have been there for 25 years. So they have been grandfathered in and offer the most sailings that go into Glacier Bay. A lot of the other cruise ships that are newer to the market or don't pay the premiums to go into this eco-sensitive area do not go in at all or only go in on very limited sailings. So again, Carnival, you can go in Glacier Bay into May only on very few sailings. Very few of these include Vancouver departures for the Inside Passage, which is one of my favorite itineraries. But who does do the Inside Passage is Norwegian Caribbean. They do Glacier Bay, and they do have Inside Passage. So it's just a little bit less in the service and amenities, but they've got some very good itineraries, and the Norwegians do Alaska very well indeed. The Royal Caribbean does not do Glacier Bay, at least as far as all my research could find so far. They also have very few Ketchikan, which tell me they're not going very deep into the Inside Passage. They're doing more, even though they have some departures from Vancouver, they're doing much more from Seattle and skipping the Inside Passage. Actually, Disney Cruise Line does not have any Glacier Bay, only because they're a very new cruise line and new to the area. But they've got great itinerary and great kids programming. Princess, I have to admit, although I never say this very often, I can say this because it's my inside tips today, is that I think Princess does Alaska best. They have the most Inside Passage sailings. They do Vancouver to Inside Passage, and they have the most sailings into Glacier Bay. They also own their own rail cars, so the level of service, amenities, and food in the rail as well as on ship is a premium category. And lastly, the thing that really sells me on Princess is they own their own 2 resorts in Denali, the Denali Princess Resort and the McKinley Princess Resort. And they're the only cruise line that owns their own hotels. And so there again, the service and amenities are a step up from the normal Alaskan resorts and lodges that the other cruise lines are using. Having said that, Holland America is also a strong player. They tend to attract an older crowd. They have a little bit older ships, so if you prefer something a little more contemporary and prefer to travel with people that are closer to the 50s than the 70s, Princess versus Holland America, but very good ships. And actually, Cunard is not doing Actually, they're not doing much of anything in Alaska in 2014. Celebrity is not doing any Glacier Bay. They are up in Alaska. They do some Inside Passage. Interestingly enough, none of the luxury ships are going into Glacier Bay in 2014. So that's just a little bit about the different levels of service and looking at the different itineraries and what they're offering for next year. Let's look a little bit at ports of call. This is Skagway and Ketchikan, two of the stops along with Juneau on an inside passage cruise. And I put these both in. They're both from my scrapbook. As you can see, it was kind of cloudy on the June 24th sailing I was on. However, these are very walkable towns. So I wanted to put that in there because you do not have to pay for an expensive shore excursion to enjoy the towns. The ships are pull up to the pier within a couple of blocks of these downtowns, and they're very walkable and quite quaint, and a lot of things you can do and see on foot. Having said that, I'm also going to share a couple of the shore excursions that we did this summer that were new for me. One was we took a little Zodiac boat with a guide. There were only about, let's see, there were 8 of us on the Zodiac that went out to some of the outlying islands in Ketchikan, which are part of a national park. They had these incredible tidal pools. And as you can see, my husband here holding one of the starfish. There was just so much life as it was it was low tide. And so we took the boat in, we hiked up to the top of this island, looked at some of the wildlife and trees, came back down, had coffee and hot chocolate around a campfire, and then took the boat home. So it was a very small, intimate, really enveloped in nature, really enjoyable, small shore excursion. Now, this is a shore excursion that we did in Juneau, and it was one of my wow factors for the trip. I think it was my husband's the favorite day of the whole trip is we took a helicopter tour that landed on Mendenhall Glacier and then did a glacier hike with one of the guides that they have up on the glacier for you. It was an incredible day. Not only do we have great scenery coming out of Juneau by helicopter, but we landed right on the glacier. And you can see we were walking by these fissures that are hundreds to thousands of feet deep. Some of them they consider bottomless. We did that with a guide, and as you can tell by how bundled up we were, it was about 40 degrees colder up on that glacier with the wind chill than it was in Ketchikan Islands the day before. So don't rule out some of the more expensive shore excursions that are by flight seeing or by helicopter, because they're a way to get you up close and personal to these. And they're also, again, by nature of the size of the planes and helicopters, are very small, intimate groups. So I wanted to let you know a little bit about, if you want to see more of Alaska, the different regions that you will see. When you're cruising, you're going to stay really here along the green, and this is the temperate rainforest belt. I guess it's scientifically called the hemlock spruce forest, but it gets a lot of rainfall. Ketchikan is in here. Ketchikan alone averages 164 inches a year of rain. So chances are, summer being rainy season, you will have rain for some part or all of the day while you're in Alaska, but that's just part of the Alaskan summer experience. Then there's also the hardwood forests, and that can be a little bit drier. This is where Denali National Park is, all 6 million acres of it. Mount McKinley is here. So the interior just has a very different geography, topography, and some of the different wildlife. And then the third area is the tundra region, the Western Alpine tundra. There's really not a lot of organized tours and cruises up here. Very rough sea conditions up in this area, a lot of lichen and more barren shores. So the forests and the rainforests tend to attract the most customers. However, this is another reason to see why, if you want to see a little bit more of Alaska, you really need to get off the cruise ship and spend at least 3 days getting into the interior. And here's some of the itineraries that will get you into the interior, and these are part of cruise tours. And I took this one off of the Princess Cruise site because, as I said, I really love Princess's cruise tours and cruise product up in Alaska. I know I'm biased, but it's just my favorite. For instance, here you get off after your inside passage cruise of 7 days in Whittier. And from there, you literally walk across a parking lot and board the Princess Rail service, and they call it the Direct to Wilderness Rail. And that will take you all the way up to Mount McKinley and Denali. And this stretch here from Whittier is about an 8.5 hour, 9 hour drive by motor coach. And it's 8.5 hours to 9 hours by train. But when you see the next two slides, you'll see why that is a much more enjoyable experience. This is the Direct to Wilderness Rails. And these are the cars that Princess owns, and I'll show you inside of some of those as well. Now, a lot of the cruise lines rent cars and do have rail cars that go up to the wilderness. It's just a matter, again, of amenities, service, and the food served on board. And this is why it's worth the premium to take the rail to the wilderness instead of the motor coach for me. And that is these 180-degree views with these glass tops and closures. And because there can be so much intermittent rain in the summer in Alaska, you have incredible scenery and wildlife viewing, whether it's drizzling during parts of your trip or not. There's a naturalist and guide that accompanies you on the 8.5 hours. So you do have narration to help spot wildlife and some interesting scenery as you go. Maybe more important for some, there's bar service on these cars, as well as underneath, there's a dining car, full service, waiters, and they serve a wonderful lunch actually. And if you're going, make sure you try the reindeer stew. It's actually very, very good. And this is the Denali Princess Resort. I'm going to see if I can go back one. Yes, because one other thing I wanted to tell you, and we'll talk a little bit about it when we're looking at some of the cost-saving trips, is make sure you ask your travel agent when she's booking you a cruise tour, which legs, and I'll go back to that itinerary, which legs of this journey are by rail and which ones are by motor coach, because all of them will say they're by rail, but sometimes only a little portion of it is by rail, and this longer portion could be by motor coach. Now, they are very nice motor coaches, and I should know because I did it by motor coach this summer. However, they don't have dining cars. You can't get up and move around. You don't have the freedom to move around. It doesn't have the scenery views that they have from the trains. And probably most important for me is that summer is construction season in Alaska. There is a lot of road work during the summer as they're repairing the permafrost damage and winter damage to those roads. So there are a lot of traffic delays and backups and slow going on the bus. And quite frankly, I will never do the motor coach again. But I had a girlfriend that went with me, and she said for her budget and the ability to see Denali, she would do it again all day long. So I'm giving you both sides, but I always think it's important that you know what to expect, because there's nothing worse than a surprise that's not in a good way. All right, back to the Denali Princess Resort. Again, this is a resort that is owned by Princess, and they have an excellent service, food, amenities. And to show you, this is looking down over the river and some of the observation decks, as you can see down here in the lower right, from our hotel room. And I am going to go ahead and show you just a little panoramic view from our hotel room. Again, these are my snaps and not professionals. Not a bad view at all, was it? All right, well, let's summarize with my top tips for getting the most out of your Alaska travel. I would go early in July for the best wildlife viewing. Again, the salmon are running. More of the wildlife is down at the water's edge, so there's just so much to see, from the eagles and prey birds to the bears and the moose, and it's just so much to see. I would pick a cruise itinerary that includes the Inside Passage and Glacier Bay. To me, that is my favorite itinerary in Alaska for scenery and wildlife. Number 3, I would plan to stay an extra day or 2 in Vancouver. It is a gorgeous city, and I actually love it. Very safe, very clean, very walkable. As a matter of fact, this is me in Vancouver this summer, and it is actually 9 o'clock at night. So as you can see, with the 12 hours of daylight, you can enjoy Vancouver quite a lot, even if you're only there for a day and a half. I personally would choose Fairbanks over Anchorage as either your arrival or departure city. And my favorite is probably to arrive into Vancouver, spend a couple days so that you're there in plenty of time and don't feel rushed to get on the ship, and then go ahead and take the cruise tour that ends up in Fairbanks and then fly home from Fairbanks. It's a little bit more expensive than flying home from Anchorage, but Anchorage is just not that attractive of a city. It's really just about an airport. And Fairbanks is much more scenic and with the paddle boats and just a lot more Alaska feel and flavor to it. It's really a quaint town. And number 5, I know I've said it, but I really do think Princess does Alaska best by land and sea. Just my personal bias, I'll admit it. And lastly, if at all possible, I would choose a cruise tour so that you can add on the direct train to Denali National Park. If you're going all that way to Alaska, if you can afford the time or money to add 3 more days to get into the interior and see Denali, it is definitely going to be worth your time. A couple of my cost-saving tips. Travel in May or September is when you're going to find the lowest price cruises and cruise tours. And again, May is very sunny. So I would be very happy going in May. You just won't see the salmon running and some of that, but you'll know what you're getting. The towns are very walkable from the ship, so remember you don't have to buy a pricey shore excursion to see Skagway, Ketchikan, or Juneau. The on-your-own cruise tours do include a cruise in the tour, but they're less expensive. But the reason they're less expensive is because they have stripped out the shore excursions during the day, and proportionally, you'll spend more time on a motor coach than the train. So that 8.5-hour leg of the journey will be by motor coach and not the rail system. If you can't do a cruise tour, however, you still can see some of the interior by booking a flight scene shore excursion. Definitely pricey, but people that did that this summer said the flight scene, because it took them way into valleys and things you can't get to by road, even by motor coach, that they saw incredible wildlife. It was away from the noise of the roads, and they said it was definitely worth it. And lastly, buy your airfare early. The summer rates for airfares have not been going down in the last 2 years to Alaska, or for that matter, to Europe. So if you definitely think you're going, I've got some ways to lock in some rates and mitigate your risk on the next couple slides. But airfare is really, you're just not going to find any deals by waiting close in. And this slide is to talk about how to take advantage of some cost savings in October and minimize your risk in case something better comes along later. It's also my chance to say Happy National Cruise Vacation Week. It's according to CLIA, the world's largest cruise sale. And what do you care about that? Probably not much, except that all the cruise lines do offer extra incentives and bonuses and special offers to generate some early revenue, which is good for us, the travelers. And all of the major cruise lines have deals out now. And what I tell my clients is that one way to secure some of these early savings, but not be locked in case there are better savings later or better offers closer in, is that you go ahead and take advantage of National Cruise Week, because most of them have a reduced deposit requirement. So you can get these special offers and still only put down a $100 per person deposit that is fully refundable until final payment. And for an Alaskan cruise, that final payment is in April. So therefore, you're locking in this month's deal with only $100 per person, and you get to hang on to that all the way till April. Then what I do for my clients, and make sure you ask your travel agent to do the same, is then I keep an eye on those itineraries, and if Princess or Royal or Norwegian, anybody offers you a better deal in December, say, or some special offer in January, they usually do this on very limited sailings just to top off a particular date. But if you can catch it, then I can refare you because it's before final payment due. So then and if nothing better comes along, you've got the best offer of the year. So that's my risk mitigation for a low investment in October strategy. Also, this is just a little extra that Dreams to Go, my agency, is doing. We are a cruise planners, American Express agency, and in the month of October, anyone that books a cruise in October, going anywhere, no matter when, is automatically entered for a chance to win $1,000 to spend on your trips. So just a little extra to say Happy National Vacation Week, Cruise Week from Dreams to Go. And a lot of the sales that you'll be seeing this week and this month are combinable. So they not only give you a reduced deposit plus savings on board, but then any other deal they have out right now, you can combine those. And again, you get to lock this in with only $100 down. If you would like to look for some of those deals, you can go to our website, which is www.dreamstogo.com. I call this the Expedia for cruises. And actually, I think it's better than Expedia because it is built by cruisers for cruisers. Cruise Planners is the #2 biggest buyer nationally of cruise cabins in the, actually worldwide. And so they have negotiated very good rates, which all of the Cruise Planners agency, like Dreams to Go is, get to take advantage of. So on our website, we have a free tool where you can search, just like you would on Expedia. You can search by date, the length of trip you want, destination you're interested in, a specific cruise line, cruise ship, or a departure point. Any one of those or none of those. And you can just research and see what's available different times of the year or for the weeks when you have some vacation planned. And again, that's a free tool. Some other things that we offer on our website is this banner here changes every week. And what Cruise Planners does, it goes to all of our cruise partners and gets the very best deals for that week and combines them. So if you click here, you'll get a listing of best deals for that week. Some of them are close in, some of them are farther out. And if you would rather just have a compilation email of the best cruise deals of the week, these also include some of our land partners, our land tours as well. So if you'd like one email a week delivered to your mailbox, then you can just enter your email address there and hit subscribe. And that's what all we use that for, is for special cruise deals. And it's 1, maybe 2 emails a week at most. So we won't be spamming you. And I just want to thank you so much for joining us today and let you know that I am available offline. I'll see if we've got some questions to answer here shortly. But if you have any specific questions you want to ask me about offers or itineraries, contact me directly at 407-951-8485 or email me at kmptravel@icloud.com. or visit our website and feel free to look around and search on your own as well. All right, well, let's see if there are any questions. Wow, not too many questions today. Let me see if I have any coming in. No? All right, well, let's go ahead and try to give away a prize. We've got a little Alaskan trivia, and for the first person to type in that questions field that's on that you'll see on the control panel, if you first person to type in the answer to these 2 trivia questions will win the Alaska Cruise Companion, which was written by Rachel Cartwright. She is a whale researcher and a biologist with 20 years experience. She's often a guest lecturer on the different cruise lines. And this book is filled with maps and information about wildlife, topography, and it's just an incredible resource. So we will be giving that away today to the first person to correctly tell me. This is a two-part question, so there's two trivia facts I need you to answer. Number one is, what is the capital of Alaska? And number two is, what is the annual rainfall in Ketchikan, Alaska, which is in the temperate rainforest belt of Alaska? So again, name the capital of Alaska and tell me what is the annual rainfall in inches, what number of inches of rainfall falls in Ketchikan on an annual basis. So go ahead and get your answers in, and oh, we have a winner. Mary, congratulations. Yes, you answered correctly. Juneau is the capital of Alaska, and Ketchikan averages about 164 inches of rain a year. I will be mailing that out to you. But again, if you'd like to contact me for any specific questions on your travel needs, or if you need some help planning your trip to Alaska, Europe, the Caribbean, or anywhere else in the world, please give me a call. Again, 407-951-8485, or send me an email. And let me know if you'd like to subscribe to my monthly blog of insider travel tips. I do sessions like this by blog about Alaska, Europe. Recently also did one on river cruises. Or if you'd like to get our email of the best weekly travel deals, go ahead and send me an email and we will hook you up. Otherwise, thank you again. I really appreciate your tuning in with us today, and bon voyage, and I hope your next travels are happy.